monthly program. We have lots of exciting content to share with you this year, so I hope you'll continue to join us for future events. My name is Nancy Kelley, and I serve on the steering committee and as a founding member of NYC Builds Bio. I am joined by my fellow founding and steering committee member, Mitch Simpler, partner of JBB.
Hello, Nancy, and welcome all to our sixth installment, Gateways to the East, Brooklyn and Long Island. And I, too, like the rest of the people in the call, I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing what's coming. And with that, Nancy, I turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Mitch. I would also like to acknowledge the founding and corporate members of NYC Builds Bio who make this programming possible. We're excited to welcome all of you to the sixth webinar of NYC Builds Bio sponsored seminar series with Triumvirate Environmental. This webinar is entitled Life Science Subclusters in the Greater New York Metro Area. It will focus on two of the most interesting clusters, Brooklyn and Long Island, which enjoy a great diversity of resources for the life science community, from national laboratories to top healthcare and research institutions, to new incubators for transformative technologies beyond therapeutics, to community spaces and manufacturing capabilities. Our first webinar, held in January, discussed the impact of a recent New York City planning study on the greater New York metro life science economy. It concluded that the New York metro area, which includes New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, enjoys the largest life science economy in the United States, and the 2020 census data shows it growing faster than many other regions of the country. The second webinar, held in February, focused on two of the fastest growing subclusters in New York City, Midtown West and Long Island City. The third, held in March, focused on exciting new projects in Midtown East and Manhattanville in Harlem. And in keeping with a focus on the greater New York metro area, the fourth webinar took a look at Hudson Square and Jersey City, just across the Hudson in New Jersey. Last month, we focused on the oldest and most substantial life science cluster in New York City, the area around Mount Sinai Health System and Academic Alley, which is the largest concentration of the best academic medical centers in the world. You can find links to all those sessions on the NYC Builds Bio website. This seminar series will run for 8 episodes from January through September, each covering different life science subclusters in the greater New York metro area in more depth. All of these subclusters are growing up around existing academic institutions and new private life science development in neighborhoods, which have distinct social, cultural, and recreational flavors. The next seminar is scheduled for July 26th, focusing on the Bronx, Westchester County, and Hudson Valley, where lots is happening. Registration is open, so be sure to sign up after this event to learn more. Also, check out our website for other upcoming events, in-person tours, and receptions, which are scheduled throughout July, August, and September. We are especially excited about the inaugural Philly Builds Bio Symposium at the Union League of Philadelphia on September 13th, and the 2022 NYC Builds Bio Symposium at the Times Center on November 1st. But today we'll learn about Brooklyn and Long Island. For those projects that could not participate, I will share with you content from some of our past programs to illustrate the scale of their efforts. To discuss our other exciting projects, we have Sara Nejad, BDC alumni and product realization specialist from NewLab in Brooklyn, Ashley Mays, Senior Vice President, Head of Leasing, Brooklyn Navy Yard, Eva Cramer, PhD, Vice President of Biotechnology and Scientific Affairs, SUNY Downstate Medical Center, also in Brooklyn, Stacey Sikes, VP Government Affairs and Communications, Long Island Association, and Chairman of the Board, Accelerate Long Island. Diane Fable, PhD, Director of Operations, New York State Center for Biotechnology. Peter Donnelly, PhD, Associate Vice President for Technology Partnerships at Stony Brook University, and Andrew Whiteley, Vice President, Business Development and Technology Transfer at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. Before I turn it over to Triumvirate Environmental, I just want to cover a few administrative details. We have over 100 people registered for today, so please keep your cameras and microphones off during the program to minimize technical difficulties. There's a program and PowerPoint highlighting the hosts, sponsors, speakers, and content for this meeting. These will be posted on the NYC Builds Bio website. The program is being recorded and will be available on the website and the NYC Builds Bio YouTube channel. Since most of you are participating in listen-only mode, please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will open up for discussion and Q&A at the end of the program and will address as many of the audience questions as possible. If we have time, we will also have a chance for smaller randomized groups to meet in separate rooms where you can open your videos and microphones to talk to one another. You can stay as long as you like to get to know each other and share stories. Now I'd like to introduce Alicia Aniello, General Manager, New York Branch, Triumvirate Environmental, the lead sponsor for this seminar series.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Alicia Aniello. I'm the General Manager of Triumvirate's New York and New Jersey operation. Triumvirate has been the leading environmental health and safety service provider to the life science community for over 34 years. From laboratory moves to regulatory setup, permitting, on-site support, including waste disposal, we've partnered with hundreds of life science companies across the country and helped them grow safely from their early stages in incubator spaces through to production and manufacturing spaces. I've been with Triumvirate for almost 16 years. It's been wonderful to witness cutting edge technologies come to life. Triumvirate's success comes from our flexibility and our customization of our offerings to fill all EHS needs through one vendor, thus leaving the researchers and management companies free to remain hyper-focused on their science and the success of their business. With the excitement and growth here in the New York metro area, I thought Triumvirate could host this series and place a spotlight on the region in front of our long list of life science clientele across the country. As Nancy discussed, with our world-class research hospitals and top universities, along with the growing amount of space and funding being dedicated to life science here in the New York metro area, our location is ideal for collaboration between researchers and innovators. At the local level, Triumvirate has had a full operation in New York City since 2003, including the only commercially permitted hazardous waste storage facility in the 5 boroughs. We are the only local resource in this market, and having the facility puts us in the same seat as all of our clients. We're under the full scrutiny of NYC DEP, the fire department, the New York State DEC, and the EPA. We've been providing EHS support and consulting, waste disposal support, and emergency response services to some of the largest research institutions for over 20 years. We have over 40 consultants local to the New York metro area and a fleet of just over 50 vehicles for all that waste hauling. For today, I'm really looking forward to the discussions around life science spaces on Long Island, where Triumvirate got our first Long Island client in SUNY Stony Brook and Stony Brook Hospital over 18 years ago, as well as spaces in Brooklyn, a borough that's very near and dear to my heart. Triumvirate's been working with clients at Brooklyn BioBAT and SUNY Downstate for many years. I remember IAVI, the AIDS Vaccine Institute, moving to BioBAT just before Hurricane Sandy hit. So we got some fun phone calls from them right after they moved in. And they were clients of ours in Boston, and they moved to New York. So they knew that they had a friend in us here. So thank you again, Nancy, and to New York City Builds Bio for continuing to provide us with this platform to spread the word about the developments here in the New York metro area. And I will kick it back to you.
Great, thanks so much, Alicia. Okay, so I would like to open it by focusing on Brooklyn. and NewLab, which is a very exciting institution that is focusing on transformative technologies to create really innovative new companies and products. Sara?
Thank you for the introduction, Nancy. Hello, everyone. First, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sara Nejad. I'm the Product Realization Specialist at NewLab. I'm a designer, researcher, and educator, and I'm passionate about applying systems thinking and biodesign to innovate sustainable solutions. Here at NewLab, I work across different teams on life science strategy and heading our new BioLab, which is designed for early stage prototyping. I'm also quite passionate about building community, forming partnerships, and expanding NewLab's network in New York's life science ecosystem. So I'm going to start. This is not going to be news to you, but we are facing huge challenges, and the old systems are no longer serving us. For example, our current supply chains and how our materials, food, and energy are produced, distributed, and consumed are detrimental to the planetary and human health. Could we go to the next slide? So we all know that these challenges that our communities, cities, and the planet are confronted with may seem existential, but our community here at NewLab really sees this as a real opportunity to make old systems obsolete and reinvent the world. Could we go to the next slide? So our community is really the DNA of NewLab, and it's made up of our members and network of scientists, engineers, inventors, and entrepreneurs from all around the world who find their way to NewLab. We sit at a very interesting intersection of cross-disciplinary talent and challenges. Here we build companies, we bring founders together, we harness our shared resources to power entrepreneurs. And we also pair our network with leaders of corporations, cities, and countries around the world to solve pressing problems. We'll go to the next slide. We see a great opportunity to solve the issues that I just mentioned and these challenges by creating circular economies around material, food, and energy. So these are our main three focus areas in life sciences. Can we go to the next slide? And our vision is to build a different material world, one that is inspired by biology and nature, and a future where materials are designed, grown, localized, and regenerative. We'll go to the next slide. So life sciences applied to the material world has been really at the core of our mission as an organization for a long time. And to uphold that mission, we foster intentional collaboration between research, industry, and government to accelerate the commercialization and scale of the technologies and novel circular models. And to do this, we implement strategies across all 4 pillars of membership: innovation studio, venture studio, and investment. Could we go to the next slide? Here, for example, in our Brooklyn Navy Yard location that you can see in my background, we have a thriving local and global network of inventors, engineers, and entrepreneurs working in a collaborative environment. And we support them by providing access to talent, software, facilities, and opportunities. Next. To date, we have cultivated and created a wide range of companies in life sciences that are reinventing the future of material, food, energy, and even computation. And this includes Modern Meadow, Kingdom Supercultures, Amegy, and Applied Excel. Next. In addition to fostering our member community, we have also built a very robust innovation studio that focuses on pairing challenges of corporations, cities, and countries with innovators from all over the world who've been really focused on solving these issues for a long time. Next. For example, NewLab and the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research are launching an initiative to stimulate the bioeconomy in New York region. And this initiative is going to be focused on identifying viable feedstock, designing regional processing and supply chains, and also creating new bio-based material based on source from the region. Next. Also, to accelerate our mission, we partner with seasoned founders and domain experts to build enterprises in biotechnology. Our venture studio leverages our team, our infrastructure, and our network to help founders and innovators build a team, de-risk the early stages of starting a company, and really lay the foundation and network necessary for pilot growth and scale. Next. For example, we launched Applied Excel that I mentioned previously in 2019, and they recently raised a Series C and also launched a real-time clinical intelligence platform called Stat Trials Plus, which monitors different sources of data and surfaces insight that helps life science professionals get ahead. Currently, we're working on advanced biomaterials for a variety of applications, such as drug delivery and biosensing. And I'm very excited to announce this summer in partnership with Cult Food Sciences. We will kick off a venture studio that will create B2B companies to support the scaling of cell ag industry in order to reduce carbon emission, secure our food system, and reduce animal cruelty as well. Next. All right, so to summarize, to finalize, I really hope that this short presentation helped to demonstrate NewLab's commitment to life sciences and the planetary health through material innovation. We do realize that reimagining our material world is a significant challenge, but it's also a tremendous opportunity, and we are excited to amplify our efforts to support founders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries in developing new applications for bioinnovation. I'm also happy to report that in addition to expanding our efforts to accelerate innovation in life sciences across membership, innovation studio, and venture studio, we're also increasing our commitment to this field at a facility level and hope to announce even more robust commitments in the coming months. And finally, at NewLab, at its heart, it's all about community and partnerships. So if any of you feel that we might be a great partner for you to solve a challenge, to grow a new company or cultivate new opportunities for life sciences in New York, please reach out to us. We would love to be in touch and hear from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sara. I've just, it strikes me that NewLabs is the natural centerpiece for a number of emerging industry organizations like New Harvest and Biofabricate and Biodesign Challenge, of which you are a graduate. And I hope that you become a thriving hub of the engineering biology community in a very visible way. I know SOSB is also working on that here in the city. So New York is uniquely equipped to support this industry for a whole host of reasons, and love to see what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, Ashley, do you want to tell us about what's going on at the Brooklyn Navy Yard?
Yes, it's been my pleasure to. Thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure, of course, to be here with Sara, but all the other panelists who are embarking on this work just to support life sciences in our region. So the Brooklyn Navy Yard, we are a mission-driven manager, developer, really focused on being the nation's leading model for equitable urban development. We are the 300 acres that sits between Dumbo and Williamsburg. Next, please. I know that there's a bit of mystique about the Brooklyn Navy Yard because we are, in effect, a closed campus. A lot of people have had connections with the Navy Yard through events or history. I won't get too much into the history because we don't have time, but we're not a Navy Yard anymore. Next, please. We are centered now on supporting and growing a business ecosystem centered on advanced manufacturing, tech, and the creative communities. And as you can see, we touch on many different vibrant neighborhoods in Brooklyn and are deeply committed to our community and kind of in every fabric of what we do. we're committed to supporting entrepreneurs and businesses that are creating high quality, accessible jobs for New Yorkers, and then connecting those jobs on the yard to people in our adjacent neighborhoods who might not otherwise have access to those family sustaining jobs. Next, please. So we're 6.3 million square feet, again, over 300 acres. And we're at an important juncture in our growth. Over the past 2.5 years, we've delivered about 450,000 square feet of newly developed space. And almost all of that space has been absorbed. There's one space that I'll highlight quickly later. But this is an exciting moment for us. The pandemic has been really busy with entrepreneurial activity. And we're now embarking on the next phase of growth supported by our master plan, where we will embark to bring an additional 5 million square feet online. So that starts with our first building, which we're starting the development phase now. Next, please. And next again, please. Our community, and you'll hear me use that word community a lot. Oh, it looks like it might not be working. Can you advance a feet? Yeah, it's a pie. Great, thank you. Our community is about 75% manufacturing, which is a broad category focused on companies, hardware companies that are making things like drones, to woodworkers, to furniture makers, to creatives, which is our artist community, media, and then amenities like our food hall, our urban farm, Brooklyn Grange, or winery rooftop breads. Next, please. And our community is really at the center of who we are. Again, this is just showcasing some of the businesses that are on the yard, modular fabrication companies, artists, furniture makers. Next, please. And next. Thanks. And again, our community is, we put a lot of effort into connecting our businesses together. And we're really proud of the fact that 71% of our businesses have reported that they've collaborated with each other in some way. This was really showcased in the early days of the pandemic, when just in a matter of days, companies worked together to stand up factories producing PPE for the city. 25% of the city's PPE production was on the yard. Next, please. And so another component of creating the support for our community, of course, is in placemaking and providing services and a workplace where people want to be. So we have a food hall in the base of building 77, which is our anchor building that sits at Vanderbilt. Of course, we have the Wegmans development. And we also, though, have unique amenities, including a business development team that is there to support businesses on the yard, connect them with opportunities, whether it be grants. They worked a lot with companies in helping them gain access to PPP, training, and that kind of thing. Next, please. So at the yard, we've been really intentional about creating that innovation hub and bringing institutions and incubators on the yard. For instance, we have NYU and an EDC funded AR/VR lab called R Lab. There's currently a project that's under construction now called the Research Yard, which is a partnership between Pratt and City Tech and the Navy Yard in creating an applied learning facility for students and faculty. And of course, we're very intentional in recruiting NewLab to be on the yard, which is really the heart of our innovation community. We're proud of the fact that our partnership with NewLab has created a place for businesses to maintain their connection and membership with NewLab, but the Navy Yard can become a place for businesses to expand when they're in the phase where they actually need to start making things. That happens at the yard. Next, please. And next. And so just over the course, of the past couple of years, but really probably in earnest, during the pandemic, we've seen a growth in our life sciences cluster. This happened organically because of the intentional work that we did in putting the pieces in place together. But of course, with everything that's happening in the world around us, it's obviously also sparked the business need. So NewLab really being the sub of the hub of entrepreneurial activity. Next, please. But we have other types of companies really centered on applied sciences, biomaterials, companies making brain implants, microbial fermentation, med tech. So it's really kind of the Navy Yard has become a place where this work is really being built. Next, please. And next. And so now I'll just take us through a couple key spaces that I foresee that could be really interesting for life sciences companies. One is going to be at Building 303, which is on the Dumbo side of the yard. And the other is Building 293, which you'll see is on the Williamsburg side. Next, please. So Building 303, this is one of our new construction buildings that we delivered in September of 2020, which is now nearly fully leased except for this top floor. It's a 50,000 square foot floor with amazing views, as you can see, and all the trappings of a brand new construction. But it's also flexible in that it can be divided as well. Next, please. And next. The next is Building 293, which is a highly unique standalone manufacturing building with 32 to 50 foot ceiling heights, 9 loading bays, and it can really be a manufacturing kind of workhorse. This space can also be divided. So we with these two opportunities, we think that we can really continue to build our cluster both on the R&D side as well as on the manufacturing side. Next, please. And next, thanks. And this is just to highlight a bit with respect to accessibility to get to the Navy Yard. We have a shuttle system that goes to the F train and High Street, A and C. We have a New York City ferry stop, tons of micro mobility solutions, and as well as we're directly, right next to the BQE, which is really important for our manufacturing businesses to have access to trucking transportation. Next, please. And so this is just just to note that again, with our master plan building, which we're going to be starting the design now, presents another kind of next generation opportunity to create kind of the real state of the art urban, vertical manufacturing building. And so we're excited to be able to offer again a new way for manufacturing in an urban context. Next. And I will leave us here. So thanks again.
Yeah, so thank you, Ashley. That was really an eye-opening overview of the Navy Yard. Strikes me that building 293 is a great addition that might have kept Modern Meadow in the city, right? If it had been available when they were looking for space, because they were kind of looking for that kind of height, which they couldn't find anywhere else in New York.
We're really excited about it.
Yeah, thank you. So Eva, welcome. Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about Industry City. We don't have a representative to talk about Industry City today, but this is another kind of similar and very exciting development in Brooklyn, community-based. It is a historic shipping, warehousing, and manufacturing complex in the upper New York Bay waterfront in Sunset Park. And it has 6 million square feet of space, hosting commercial light manufacturing tenants and life science companies. Next slide. Here you can see the layout. They have a variety of different kinds of spaces. They have amenities, and they have outdoor and indoor spaces, which actually proved to be quite helpful during the pandemic. Next slide. But like NewLab and the Navy Yard, this is an urban campus comprised of 16 turn-of-the-century buildings across, as I said, 6 million square feet, overlooking the Statue of Liberty in downtown Manhattan. It's easily accessible by mass transportation and has just undergone a $400 million redevelopment and repositioning, which made it a hub for media, design, technology, fashion, food, and nonprofit organizations. Next slide. Here's some of the transportation modes that service the hub. Next slide. And it is really an innovation ecosystem, reaching out to all kinds of companies across the spectrum. Next slide. Here's a few of them. And, I think this is one of the things that makes Brooklyn so unique. It's kind of these unique spaces that bring together a host of industries that can collaborate with each other, and is not just focused strictly on the development of new diagnostics or therapeutics. Next slide. Here's some amenities, as I said, indoor, outdoor spaces, gyms, biking places, places for film and programming and fun throughout the community. Next slide. Lots of places to eat. Next slide. And outdoor spots for all different kinds of music and film, as I said. Next slide. Exercising. Next slide. And just a lot of programming here, which makes it a fun place to live and work. Next slide. And they've got an enormous data facility, which basically provides support for the entire community. Not only enough space to house lots and lots of data, but also redundancy, 24/7 security, and technical support. Next slide. It's an app where you can find your way around the development. Next slide. And during COVID, as I said, the outdoor spaces and the way that they were able to manage their spaces proved to be quite beneficial to the companies located here. Next slide. And lots of economic incentives available here. And as I would say, are available throughout the rest of Brooklyn and Long Island as well. Next slide. They have an innovation lab, much like NewLabs has. Next slide. And just some really cool office spaces. Carolina, you can just flip through the next slides to show kind of the character of some of them. So just a very innovative place to be. And I think between the three of these last projects that we just took a look at, we haven't really seen anything like these anywhere else in the greater New York metro area right now. And I think that's one of the things that makes Brooklyn so unique. So now we'll turn to Eva. Just want to recognize Eva as being one of the primary movers and shakers in life sciences in New York. She's been working at it, or we've been working at it together for the last 25 years. And she's grown her Downstate Incubator and BioBAT, which is next door, into quite the hub.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eva Cramer, and I'm president of the Biotech Incubator and Tech at 710, which are located at the Downstate Biotech Park, the red star that you see. And I'm also president of BioBAT, which is located 6 miles away on the Brooklyn waterfront in the Brooklyn Army Terminal. Next slide, please. So this just shows you all three sites. The Downstate Biotech Incubator and Tech at 710 are meant for early stage biotech or technology companies. And BioBAT is meant for companies that outgrow the various incubators and want to begin doing manufacturing. So if we look more carefully at the Downstate Biotech Incubator, you see that it's 50,000 square feet. It's made up of lab and office space. Most of our companies have their own labs and their own office. They share core facilities and conference space, as well as kitchenettes. We do have a nursery program for smaller size companies that want to share a lab space. Tech at 710 is a really unique space. It's specialized chemistry space, which is very difficult to find in New York City. It's composed of about 13,000 square feet. You can see a company here working in the chemistry space. The space also has core facilities and conference space and kitchenettes and stuff. So this site has 26 units. When companies outgrow this, or companies from anywhere in the world or anywhere in the United States or any incubators, and really need to expand their research and manufacturing, they can come to BioBAT at the Brooklyn Army Terminal. It is made up of about 200,000 square feet in the southern end of Building A. So let me just give you an overview of the Brooklyn Army Terminal. This whole area is over 97 acres. The two buildings together are over 4 million square feet. BioBAT is located in Building A, which is along the waterfront, and has 200,000 square feet in the southern end of the building and 38,000 square feet on the top floor of the northern end of the building. It's a partnership of the Research Foundation of SUNY on behalf of Downstate Medical School and the New York City EDC. It is zoned for M2-1 manufacturing, and there are lots of loading docks, and many of our companies have started developing their own GMP facilities and have started manufacturing. All 3 sites are part of Startup New York, and that means that they are tax-free zones for the city and the state. So companies do not pay city or state taxes, and the people that work for you do not pay city or state taxes either. All 3 sites share access to Downstate Medical Center. They can work with scientists, clinicians, and students. We have a very unique program where students can get their PhD along with various biotech companies, and we've had a number of students do that. The companies have access to our medical and scientific library. Downstate has a fantastic vivarium. Our animal facilities take up 2 floors on our campus basic science building. The companies also have access to research facilities, and they can do clinical trials with our clinicians. Mary Howard runs our entrepreneurship program. I think everybody knows Mary. She's fantastic and has been an enormous asset to all of our companies. We're an educational institution and very interested in educating young people and to stimulate them to go into science. And so we run STEAM programs for children in grammar school all the way through high school. We have set up a BioBAT arts space program, which brings artists and our entrepreneurs together to work and do creative things. I think we've seen that in the previous presentations that we've had, and we feel the same way, that bringing creative people together is fantastically important. All companies at all these locations have easy access to New York City and Long Island research institutions, and by subway, there's parking at all the facilities. And the wonderful thing about BioBAT at the Brooklyn Army Terminal is we have our own dock, and the New York City ferry system docks there. Next slide, please. And finally, I just want to brag about our company's success. We are a business incubator of New York State, and as such, we are required to compile statistics on our companies every year, and this represents data from the beginning of April 2021 to the end of March 2022. And you can see that we have 36 companies. They provide 491 jobs. Just in this year alone, they have increased their revenues by $48.8 million. And they have received from federal and non-federal funds over $242 million. They continue to be very active doing research and file and receive a number of patents. And you can see just in the past year that they have received 31 patents. And we are, as you can tell, very proud of our companies. We welcome new companies, and we're here to help you in any way we can. Thank you.
Terrific, Eva, and congratulations on all the success. Really looking forward to seeing BioBAT come alive. And I love the fact that it now serviced by a ferry, which makes it very easy to get to from Manhattan. So that's great. Okay, so now we're going to turn to Long Island. And Stacey, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Long Island?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's a beautiful day on Long Island, and I'm really excited to kick off the discussion about our region. I love Long Island. I was born and raised here, and our life sciences industry is supported by world-class research and academic institutions that are continuing to grow. And I'm really excited to share some of the statistics in this presentation because it really demonstrates the growth on Long Island and also our connections to New York City. Biotech doesn't have geographical borders. So if all of our regions are interconnected. So if one is successful, so is the other. So I look forward to working with other regions. And I think it's great, Nancy, that your next installment you mentioned is focusing on other regions in the New York metro area, because we all need to work together, and we have been in supporting biotech. So if you could go to the next slide. I'm wearing two hats today. One is Vice President of Government Affairs and Communications at the Long Island Association. We are Long Island's business organization that has been advocating since 1926, almost 100 years. We have a 80+ member board of directors that is really diverse in terms of industry. We have biotech companies and life sciences companies and research and academic institutions, but also manufacturing, professional services, and from small business to Northwell Health, which is the largest employer in New York State. So in my role there, I manage the LIA's legislative agenda and advocacy portfolio. So we focus on legislation that fosters a positive business climate. We have a new look this year. So Long Island's future is our business is our new positioning statement. We have a brand new website. I'd love for you to check it out. A lot of work went into it. We have enhanced digital communication. So we promote our members and their successes on our social media channels, in our podcast. And we do a lot of networking. We have different member committees and major events and speakers. And just next slide. Just a little bit more about our vision for Long Island. So we draft an annual set of policy priorities, and some of those goals include supporting small businesses, making Long Island more affordable for all residents, including young professionals so they can stay there. And especially as it relates to life sciences and biotech, they have a pipeline of talented employees and businesses, creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive economy, and advocating for a clean energy economy and jobs. We've been a huge supporter of offshore wind and the economic benefits that brings, for example, advocating for infrastructure investments, and I'm excited to talk about infrastructure in a little bit, and turbocharging our economy through innovation and entrepreneurship, and that includes fueling a vibrant and globally relevant life sciences cluster on Long Island. Next slide. So I am also wearing my other hat as chairwoman of Accelerate Long Island, which is a separate nonprofit organization that's a collaboration among the region's research and academic institutions and business community. And it focuses on commercializing research emanating from those institutions and facilitating our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So Accelerate was created in 2012. I actually used to serve as the assistant executive director, so I've come full circle. We had two funds. Fund one was funded by the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council, and we had $500,000 in grant funding that could be used for operating. That was matched by private investment. We had 10 portfolio companies, and our second fund had a $2.4 million equity investment through the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund with 20 portfolio companies. Next slide. So when I started at Accelerate in 2012, we did a lot of networking with all different types of sectors of high-tech entrepreneurs, including biotech and life sciences. And the board is really looking forward to getting that going again. It's a good timing now that we're coming out of the pandemic. So the organization, I guess, with the second fund was purely focused on funding, which is critical, but we're going to be doing more networking. And I should mention that the second fund also focused on downstate New York. So its portfolio was not just Long Island. We have companies in the 5 boroughs and the lower Hudson Valley. Next slide. So this just gives you a snapshot of our portfolio. This is not our entire portfolio. This is just our life sciences portfolio. And our first fund created more than 32 full-time jobs and $34 million in follow-on funding. Our Fund 2 is more than 80 jobs and $72 million in follow-on funding and counting. So some of these companies have a really promising future. Next slide. So just in case you're not familiar with Long Island, I wanted to set the stage. We are a big region. We have over 2.8 million people, larger than 15 states. There's approximately 100,000 small businesses. We have 2 counties, Nassau and Suffolk, 13 towns, 2 cities, 97 villages, and 127 school districts. So I think there is tremendous opportunity in life sciences, but one of our challenges is connecting everything together, because sometimes it's not so easy to get from place to place. Next slide, please. So biotech on Long Island. I was actually really encouraged when I was looking at some of these statistics when I was doing some research for this presentation. According to Jones Lang LaSalle, we're the 16th life sciences cluster in the US. So Jones Lang LaSalle actually broke out the 5 boroughs in New York City and regions around it. So this is Long Island. We are neck and neck with Westchester at 15, and New York City was 13. Our leading life sciences is our leading industry cluster as identified by the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council. And some of the people who might be listening who are not from New York and are not familiar with this structure, that is a body of economic development leaders that sets policy for our region and also recommends projects for grant funding. And it was formed by the governor and is coordinated through our economic development agency, Empire State Development. And then this is also from the council. In 2020, there were 588 life sciences establishments on Long Island. The industry employed over 25,000 jobs, and 71% of those jobs in pharmaceutical manufacturing and R&D labs. And there's a lot of different opportunities for jobs in the life sciences industry, from entry level all the way up the ladder. And there were new opportunities during the pandemic for our life sciences industry on Long Island. Pictured there is actually an Accelerate portfolio company from our first fund, Codagenics, which was just accepted into a World Health Organization trial for its COVID-19 vaccine. Next slide. So here's just some more data on Long Island and biotech. Every year since 2013, the number of people employed by Long Island's pharmaceutical and nutraceutical manufacturing sector has outnumbered employment by sector for the rest of New York combined. So basically life sciences is our leading manufacturing subsector. That's the point I'm trying to make on this slide. And we also have over 8,400 life sciences graduates within 60 miles of our cluster to support continued growth. Next slide, please. So we are going to continue to grow, and that's because of several reasons. The first is Nancy mentioned this in her intro, that the New York City metro region is leading the country on jobs and funding in the life sciences industry. That's according to a recent report from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. So the New York City region has nearly 150,000 life sciences jobs, 14,000 more than the next leading metro region, which is San Francisco. And the New York City metro region is home to over 5,000 life sciences companies, 30% more than the next leading metro, which is Boston. And then CBRE also recently found that the demand for life sciences space in New York City reached a record high last year with 433,000 square feet leased. So that leads me into my next point, is that we have some really exciting transit projects opening that will facilitate connections between Long Island and New York City. They're projected to open this year. And we think that we can help accommodate some of that growth on Long Island with the space needs for biotech companies. So the EDC report also specifically mentions that transit connections and transit-oriented labor growth will mean that life sciences companies that are relocating to New York or looking to expand can look beyond just New York City and the regions outside of New York City as well, because there's better transit connections. And 93% of labor force growth was in 90 minutes travel time to Penn or Grand Central. And so this year, in 2022, Grand Central Madison, also formerly known as East Side Access, is launching, and that will provide a direct connection from the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central Station. It will shorten commute times and increase ridership on the Long Island Railroad by 40%. And this is a multi-billion-dollar project, years in the making. So you're going to have more Long Island Railroad trains running during peak hours. There will be better reverse commuting options to Long Island. And train capacity to and from New York City will be increased by 50%. So this could have a huge impact on accommodating the projected growth in life sciences. And again, having that facilitating that interconnected relationship between New York City and regions outside of New York City. The third track is also a mainline expansion between Floral Park and Hicksville. So that is also opening this year, which will increase service and reliability for customers of the Long Island Railroad. And it's not on the slide, but I also want to mention the Long Island Association is supportive of the redevelopment of Penn Station as well. It's like a dungeon now, and improving the gateway to Manhattan at Penn Station will also encourage more ridership. So I mentioned the research and academic institutions. They are continuing to grow on Long Island. The Accelerate board members include Brookhaven National Laboratory, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, Hofstra University. I used to work for Hofstra for 6 years, and we have a New York State certified business incubator there, Northwell Health, and Stony Brook University. You're going to hear from Cold Spring Harbor and Stony Brook University, but I'll just mention that there's a really exciting construction project on Cold Spring Harbor's campus, and Stony Brook University has a network of incubator facilities with more exciting growth planned. Brookhaven National Laboratory actually won a contract from the Department of Energy to construct the electron ion collider, which is a cost between $1.6 and $2.6 billion and will be critical to the United States leadership in nuclear physics. And then we have many other universities now. We have Malloy and St. Joseph's just received university status on Long Island that have entrepreneurship programs, biomedical engineering programs, incubators. Farmingdale State College has a Broad Hollow Bioscience Park. So there is really a lot of opportunity at all these institutions. And I'll end with, there's a vision to move forward as well. So one of the projects that is worth mentioning is called Midway Crossing. It's a decades-long vision, but it is a $2.8 billion commercial project with significant life sciences space, and that's envisioned in Ronkonkoma, and will create a connection to Long Island MacArthur Airport and the Ronkonkoma train station. So we are looking ahead to accommodate growth, and we look forward to continuing to be part of this robust ecosystem in the New York City metro area. And thank you for the time today.
Wow, Stacey, thank you. That is quite the overview of what's going on in Long Island, which I'm sure hardly anyone on this call was aware of. So now we get to turn to some of the institutions on Long Island that are just doing amazing things. So Diane, do you want to talk to us about the New York Center for Biotechnology?
Sure, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. So I'm Diane Fable, I'm Director of Operations for the Center for Biotechnology. We are a New York State Center for Advanced Technology located on the campus of Stony Brook University, but we do have a statewide mission. We do focus a lot on Long Island because we are physically located here. Next slide. So we are supported by a NYSTAR, which is New York State's high-tech economic development organization. But we have other designations as well that help us fulfill our mission to support the growth of the biotech industry statewide. They include the National Institutes of Health through a designation as a research, evaluation, and commercialization hub. We were one of 3 in the country designated in 2015. That program has since grown. That was the foundation for the establishment of the Long Island Bioscience Hub. That's a partnership similar to Accelerate Long Island between the Center for Biotechnology, Stony Brook University, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, Brookhaven National Laboratory, and the Feinstein Institute at Northwell Health. We're supported by the Economic Development Administration to support companies to access SBIR, STTR funding. That program is a federal program that is the largest source of non-dilutive capital for technology-based small businesses in the country. And we use our EDA support to help New York companies be successful in their proposals. And we're also supported by the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, which is a federal agency charged with protecting the national health security. And we are their business accelerator, boots on the ground in New York and New York metro area. Next slide, please. I'll breeze through these, but all that we do is not done alone. We collaborate extensively with other institutional partners. Next slide. As well as business partners, both strategic partners and investors in the life sciences. Next slide. And together we provide an end-to-end suite of support programs that take innovation in academic institutions and outside in small companies from feasibility, even pre-intellectual property, all the way to a Series A or strategic partnership and everything in between. So our primary clients are faculty innovators, as well as emerging companies from throughout New York State. Next slide. So we offer, like I said, this end-to-end suite of programming. I won't go through all of this programming other than to say that it does, we have 3 funds. These are not-for-profit funds, not equity-based funds that invest in either commercially promising faculty research consistent with the NIH mission, in health security, which is a new pilot fund, consistent with BARDA's interest in national health security. And we have a fund that supports collaborations between emerging companies and Stony Brook University faculty. It's called Advanced Research and Development Program. And it's meant to give small companies access to scientific and technical expertise, to the sophisticated resources of a research university, incubators, and a complete set of wraparound services. We have many, many other programs. I mentioned the SBIR, STTR program. We offer biostrategy sessions to emerging companies where we'll put together 15 to 20 of our friendly investors and industry advisors who listen to the pitch of first-time entrepreneurs and then provide actionable feedback and guidance to those companies. Very often that becomes kind of a roadmap for the company, and we build a team of industry mentors around the entrepreneur to help them prioritize and execute on a strategy that will bring their company closer to a commercial partnership or private investment. That's under our Long Island BioMentor initiative. And we also support an annual event, the Life Sciences Summit, which brings early stage companies and faculty innovators together with the capital and strategic partners they'll need to move their assets into clinical development. Next slide. This is just a few examples of how we've contributed to product development and company formation. from small companies to some companies that have been acquired and are actually employing hundreds and hundreds of people. New slide, please. We invest in development of infrastructure, both programmatic and physical infrastructure to support the growth of the industry. We were participating founders in the Long Island High Technology Incubator, which is located on the campus of Stony Brook University. Participating founder in New York Bio, which is the state's trade association for the biotech industry. As I mentioned, the Long Island Bioscience Hub, which is that partnership of the major research institutions on Long Island, focused on advancing basic research discoveries into the commercial sector. And we were also founders of the Center for Bioengineering at Stony Brook University. Next slide, please. I provided this graphic just to give people a sense for how the cluster is, the biotech cluster on Long Island is distributed. So this is just a few of our clients that we plotted on this map of Long Island, but you can see that there's a concentration around in Suffolk County, around Stony Brook University, a little farther west on the Nassau Suffolk border, around Cold Spring Harbor and Farmingdale University, and then a little further west into Nassau, around the Feinstein Institute for Northwell Health, at Northwell Health. Next slide, please. But I wanted to spend some time talking about a pilot program that was funded by the National Institutes of Health. I mentioned it earlier, it's the Long Island Bioscience Hub. We were one of 3 of these hubs funded back in 2015, and others have since been added. The REACH hubs are part of a national network that includes the National Centers for Accelerated Innovation, also supported by NIH, and they support hubs in Boston, around the Cleveland Clinic, and the University of California Medical Centers. And collectively, it represents the innovation capacity of more than 50 academic institutions, all working to develop best practices for how we translate academic innovation into commercial opportunity. Next slide, please. So I mentioned both the National Centers for Accelerated Innovation and the Research Evaluation and Commercialization hubs. I just wanted to do a comparison here. So the National Institutes of Health, when they were authorized by Congress to invest in these programs, were required to generate data that measured the impact of the government's investment in these hubs and centers. And so NIH retained the Research Triangle International, which is a private consultancy, to conduct this independent audit of impacts generated from these programs. And so I want you to just look across the top. You'll see the National Centers for Accelerated Innovation on the left, and then to the right are the Research Evaluation and Commercialization hubs. Now, if you just notice that the National Centers for Accelerated Innovation were funded in 2013 for a term of 7 years with a budget of $10.5 million. While the Research Evaluation and Commercialization hubs, which the Long Island Bioscience Hub is one of, were funded in 2015 for a 3-year term at $3 million. So considerably less and a shorter runway, with the goal of moving academic innovation into the commercial sector, or at least down that pathway. But you'll look at the impacts the Long Island region was able to generate in that short period of time. Excuse me, if you look at the SBIR, STTR awards and applications, you can see we were awarded 9 SBIR awards or STTR awards based solely on the projects funded under this initiative. It's not center-wide, it's not Long Island-wide, it's just Long Island Bioscience Hub funded by NIH. So we had 15 applications, 9 awards. That's, if you know the program, it's a very successful success rate, which is usually around 18 to 20%. And we far exceeded the University of California and are on par with the other major hubs in Boston, which had 16 partner institutions, and the Cleveland Clinic and the Ohio institutions that had 6 partners. And if you look at startup companies, you'll see certainly we're on par with these major clusters in Boston around Cleveland Clinic and the California medical centers, but don't quite get there yet. We do exceed startups for University of Louisville and are equal with the University of Minnesota. But the interesting thing to me when I looked at the statistics was that in just 3 years of operating the pilot program, we were able to generate $64.5 million in follow-on funding. And if you consider that we're going from point of discovery in many cases, sometimes there's intellectual property, but there are no strategic partners identified at this point. And we were able to bring them to the point where they were able to attract either federal or private investment. And I think what this demonstrates is the innovation capacity of the Long Island community to fuel new innovation and to fuel company formation in the region. And so maybe this presentation is coming kind of at the back end of the more established network, where companies are actually beginning to manufacture and acquire space. But I think it's the academic institutions that are serving as the engine for this type of commercial development. And I just wanted to use this pilot to demonstrate the capacity that exists to fuel further innovation. Next slide, please.
Diane, I just want to make sure that we have time for Stony Brook and Cold Spring Harbor. We've got only 15 minutes left. So
okay.
I think this is a great setup for showcasing the research institutions.
Yes, it was deliberate.
Yeah. Good job.
We can skip this slide. So I just want to say that the center overall, we've been around for quite a while. This is a compilation of impact over 15 years, $1.2 billion in economic impact, 812 million in new corporate revenues generated, and 1,125 jobs. And with that, I think that my next slide is thank you all for your attention, and thanks to our sponsors and supporters.
Really impressive track record, Diane. Congratulations. I know you've been working at this for a long time, and that's really quite impressive. So Peter, now you can tell us about Stony Brook and some of what's driving all of this economic growth that Diane described.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you to both NYC Builds Bio and the Triumvirate for the environment. Pleasure to join you and the other panelists here. I'm Pete Donnelly, Associate Vice President for Technology Partnerships at Stony Brook University, and happy to provide today a pretty quick flyover. Hearing Nancy, I will try to jam right along and leave time for Andrew to present Cold Spring Harbor, which is certainly one of Long Island's gems as a research institution. So I'll start with just a quick overview of the university. Stony Brook does fly under the radar a little bit, but we are a very large public institution. We are part of the SUNY system, the largest higher education system in the country. Stony Brook and Buffalo recently tagged as flagship institutions for SUNY. We've got approaching 30,000 students, all of the undergrad and grad programs you would expect for an institution that size. And I won't run through all of the bullets on the left. You can read them. We are not at the top 10 list of all of the top 10 lists, but we are very competitive in a lot of areas, and maybe best demonstrated by membership in the invitation-only AAU, which is the group of 65 leading research institutions in North America. I'll highlight at the bottom, in addition, we also co-manage Brookhaven National Lab with Battelle. Brookhaven is one of the DOE labs. It is a powerhouse of both basic research and some applied work. Stacey emphasized the recent major award they got in building the electron ion collider. They also have a synchrotron, which is used a lot by life science companies for imaging. They have advanced microscopy and characterization facilities, and they have a very new big cryo electron microscope. All of those are accessible to industry, both large and small companies. In the middle, I'll just highlight, with our size on Long Island, we have a pretty big economic impact. And moving to the right, we do a lot of work with companies leveraging a lot of the things that I mentioned on the left. Most of that work is done through projects, and we've done in total a lot of projects that in aggregate have a lot of impact. And I'll emphasize on the next slide, Carolina, the programs we rely on to make that impact. At the top, on both the left and the right, are New York State Centers of Excellence and Advanced Technology. Diane just gave a wonderful overview of the Center for Biotech. That is certainly the main center affiliated with Stony Brook, but working across the state of New York, focused on life sciences and biotech. But I'll also highlight what we call CWIT, the Center of Excellence in Wireless and Information Technology. We do a lot of health tech there. We have pretty big strength in AI and ML and visualization. And we have a pretty big installation of NVIDIA GPUs for pretty advanced high performance computing. We have 6 incubators. 3 of them have life science companies. Across them, we have about 120 companies and about 500 people working there. Under industry assistance, the MTRC is another state of New York program also funded by NIST to assist our manufacturing community with advanced technology. The SPUR program is a really great program to fund internships if you are doing projects and looking for students who may become permanent hires. And I'll also emphasize the Hotspot program and Startup New York. Ava touched on Hotspot earlier. It really does provide great tax benefits. Stony Brook campus is home to a center for those benefits. Next slide, please. I'll just highlight quickly our R&D park. We have 3 buildings constructed here. If you start upper left, one of them is focused on energy. Upper right, that's our Center of Excellence in Wireless and Information Technology. On the bottom, we have a brand new building, the IDC, which we are very happy to just be retaking possession of after it has served as a state of New York vaccination site for the last 18 months. That was its first use. And we're very excited about the 4th building, which we hope will break ground this year. It's fully funded, a new Institute for Engineering-Driven Medicine. That will also be a wonderful collaboration and partnering opportunity for life science companies. The opportunities for industry here are fit with our expansion plans for the park. You can see 10 orange boxes on the slide. We've got 4 tagged. We will continue building more, and they are available for both co-development and ground leases. Ground leases, I should emphasize, is probably not an immediate opportunity if you're going to work with the state of New York, and we are the state of New York. But midterm and longer, really great opportunity. The park in total is about 250 acres and very quickly growing. So it's one of our major assets in engaging with industry. And last slide, I'll just try to tie together the fast flyover that I did with ways to engage with Stony Brook relevant to industry. In terms of just pure real estate, we do have incubators and the R&D park. A number of ways to engage if you have interest in both research and testing. And certainly we have a lot of strength in new ventures, both acceleration and in entrepreneurship development. We are out on Long Island, but Stacey did a great job of emphasizing how that distance is getting shorter with all of the really wonderful infrastructure projects going in to improve transportation. Stony Brook is a stop on the LIRR. So if you have any curiosity or want to pursue learning a little bit more about any of what I've provided a quick overview on, we'd love to chat. We'd love to host you for a visit. And Nancy, I'll bounce it back to you.
Terrific. Thank you, Peter, for that flyover. It was great. And I'm sure that you will find some interested people who need to learn more. Andrew, you're going to tell us about Cold Spring Harbor, which is one of the most storied research institutions in the United States.
Okay, thanks very much, Nancy. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And I'll just do a very quick summary of Cold Spring Harbor Labs. As it says on the sign here, we've been around since 1890. You know, a little bit predates the internet and Zoom meetings. And we don't do concrete, we do trees, oceans, and parkland. So it's interesting to contrast that there's a place for people to form and work in companies for everybody. So next slide. So Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory was founded 130 years ago. It's been home to 8 Nobel Prize winners. We are by the shore, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later. But actually, we're more than that. We are an institution that focuses not just on research, innovation, but also in education. So we have our own school, Biological Sciences, and confer postgraduate degrees for people that are both coming to us from Stony Brook, but our own students as well. We're also one of the leading exponents of education in molecular biology and life sciences. And we have, and I will highlight our DNA learning centers on a small map later on. We also publish to the life science. So we have our own press business that sits within the context of Cold Spring. So next slide. So we're located on the boundary of Nassau County and Suffolk County, literally on the boundary. We're called Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, although the lab sits in the village of Laurel Hollow. Cold Spring Harbor is in Suffolk County, Laurel Hollow is in Nassau County. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. Next slide. But as I say, we do a beautiful campus. This is our campus as it's displayed today. It's a series of buildings that are both historic in nature. Some of these buildings have been around for 150 years, and also modern laboratory facilities that are state of the art. At the top of the picture here is the newest expansion, and we see the car park on the very top is somewhere where we would anticipate our next expansion taking place. So next slide. Just to get a sense of how this means in terms of our ecosystem. You're not around for 130 years without also bringing about other facets to this business. And so in addition to this bucolic laboratory campus, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory also operates a number of other centers. And starting from the top right, the Banbury Conference Center overlooks Cold Spring Harbor and the Long Island Sound. Within the village of Cold Spring Harbor, we have established a Dolan DNA Learning Center, which receives visits from our high school students throughout the year. We also partner with the Broad Hollow Business Park at Farmingdale State College. This is a 100,000 square foot facility that is has two different mandates. We've recently agreed to bring in a new company, Estee Lauder, new to us as an anchor tenant for the facility, and also host a number of the companies that have been mentioned in presentation in our incubator facility at the Farmingdale State College. We also have a campus at Cold Spring Harbor, Woodbury. This is a technology center that houses the press. It also includes our Cold Spring Harbor Clinical Laboratory. And I've also mentioned here a number of the DNA learning centers that are situated across New York that are run by our organization, including the Brooklyn cited DNA Learning Center at NYC at City Tech, the Harlem DNA Learning Center, and also the DNA Learning Center at Regeneron. Next slide. So we are an innovator. We spend a lot of our time thinking about company formation. These are just some of the companies that we have spun out of our organization. Not all of them are in New York, and that's perhaps the challenge. We don't drive for only organizations that will establish New York, but if there are large investments coming for companies, then these tend to get positioned where the CEOs are, and that's perhaps the biggest challenge to New York, but nevertheless a great opportunity as we start to develop companies like Stoke Therapeutics and Mestac Therapeutics. So thanks very much. That's all I wanted to say, and hopefully we've ended on time.
Well, that is a beautiful campus, Andrew. Thank you for sharing that with us. And really exciting to see all of the different kinds of activities that you have there, not just the commercialization, but the DNA learning centers, which are benefiting, you know, the broader New York marketplace as well. So thanks for sharing that. We are out of time. We've had a lot of information presented this afternoon, so thank you all for joining us and staying here. Just wanted to call attention to a couple of upcoming events. On July 19th, we will be having an in-person tour and reception at the Manhattanville Factory District. At the end of July, we'll have our next installment of this series from the Bronx to Westchester and Hudson Valley. In August, we will have an in-person tour and reception at the CUNY Science Center, also in Harlem. And then in September, we will have the final installment, Gateways to Connecticut, and of course, the symposium for Philadelphia. So check our website out to learn more, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Nancy. This was great.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.